everyone, how are you doing today? Good. So, I'm going to be talking to you today about compassionate leadership, and I believe a key to that is really focusing on understanding, building relationships, and getting to know your team. I've got an introduction slide in there, but Sophie's done a great job of introducing me. So this is me. I am director of the Joyful Web. We started the company under 2 years ago. Myself and my business partner, Sophie Turton, whose lovely face you will be seeing on some of the next slides. Around that same time, we also founded BelongCon, which is a community initiative that both Sophie and I work together on. We have events, a podcast, and all of that is focused on getting people to genuinely connect, understand each other better, and share their stories, with focus on finding that sense of belonging in the world. I'm also a children's author. I've published 4 children's books with an illustrator, a wonderful illustrator called Phoebe Kirk, which are all around themes of diversity and inclusion. And I got my letter yesterday confirming my official appointment as a non-executive director of Wired Sussex. And so I'm really, really pleased to be part of such a fantastic organisation and be here today. So, first of all, I wanted to start by talking about what makes a great manager. And in order to do this, I sent a whole bunch of quite scary WhatsApp messages to people that I have managed in past roles, asking them what they thought made a great manager and what made a not so great manager. And they said that what made a great manager was commitment to helping people grow, having trust in your team, having faith in your team's ability, focusing on people before focusing on tasks, being supportive and encouraging, and then what made a not so great manager was feeling like they were stepping away when the going got tough and distancing themselves, treating people like an inconvenience when they ask for help and advice, not giving time to your team and displaying negativity. And the reason all of those WhatsApp messages I sent are really scary is because these are all things that people said about me as a manager, including the bad stuff. So a key thing that stood out for me is that when I looked at some of the more negative feedback they were giving me, it was at a time when I was feeling like I was in a really, really high pressure environment where I wasn't being nurtured. And so the key point before I go into any of this is that a high pressure work environment that focuses on outcomes and numbers is not an environment that supports great leadership. So the 5 lessons that I'm going to talk about today are the 5 key things that I've learned about being a good manager and being a good leader. And I'm also not standing up here as someone that has it all handled and is telling you how to do your job, because I'm running a growing business and we are certainly in the stage of still working all of these things out for ourselves and the kind of leaders that we want to be at the Joyful Web. So the first thing I've learned is use personality tests. And I put personality in inverted commas because, of course, none of these things really tell you that much about your personality and who you are as a person. But what they do is they help you understand your team and they help your team understand you. So I worked for a company where we did an entire away day around the Myers-Briggs type indicator, or the 16 personalities test. Raise your hand if you heard of the Myers-Briggs? Oh, pretty much everyone. You essentially get 4 letters that describe your personality and look at whether you're extroverted or introverted, intuitive or sensing, thinking or feeling, or judging or perceiving. And that basically looks at your default states and how you respond to situations. And up until the point we did that away day, every time I had a one-to-one with my manager, I ended up bursting into tears. Because everything she said to me, I was taking as a personal attack, and I was convinced that she didn't think I was that good at my job and she didn't really like me that much. And then we did the Myers-Briggs, and it turned out that we were so similar, but I came out as an ENFP, and she came out as an ENTJ. And the F and the T was the key thing there, in that I was a feeler and she was a thinker. And she felt that when she was giving me this feedback, it was all logic-based and it was constructive, whereas I was taking everything as a personal attack and really feeling into what that meant about our relationship. That completely changed our communication style, completely changed how we work together, and she's now one of my really great friends and we're still in touch. There's also one called DISC analysis, which a lot of that is about self-awareness and adjusting your communication styles. So through doing that at another organisation I worked for, I realised, surprise, I'm quite high on the dominance, which can alienate a lot of people. And that allowed me to be really, really mindful of how I adjusted my communication styles, particularly when I was in a stressful situation. And then emotional intelligence as well, which is much more focused on self-awareness and adjusting and thinking about how you're responding to situations before you then react and go into communicate with your team. The second lesson is create a boundary culture. Boundaries matter, they are incredibly healthy, and I always encourage my team to set boundaries and make sure that my team are aware of my boundaries as well, which is when I will take calls, when I won't take calls, when I will have meetings, when I won't, and making it okay to say no. I had a manager who, she did this thing to me, which I'll never forget, and I actually did on another member of staff when I was in another job, which she could see how overworked and over capacity I was. And she asked me to take on a task, knowing full well that I would say yes. And I went, yeah, of course I can do it. And then she was like, okay, come in the kitchen, we're gonna have a word. And she sat me down and she said, why did you say yes to that? I said, well, because you asked me to do it. And she said, yeah, but you are at like 90% capacity in your workload. You can't take this on. Why aren't you saying no? And from that moment, I was like, oh my goodness. And she made it perfectly okay for me to say, no, I can't do that. You're going to have to find someone else. I always thought that boundary setting was something that was aggressive and selfish, and that if people perceived me as setting strong boundaries, they think I was a bitch and they couldn't approach me. But actually, boundaries are so vital for your own well-being. Not only do they allow you to have respect for your time, but they allow others to have respect for your time as well. I worked with a business coach recently who said to me, don't imagine your boundaries as like you slamming up walls. Imagine your boundaries as a beautiful rose garden that you've really carefully cultivated, that you just mindfully and respectfully ask people to please not step on. 3 is focus on people, not problems. So if there's a performance issue, for example, and you sit down with a member of staff to address that particular performance issue, do not go straight in on what the issue is with their performance. From my experience, performance issues are always about something deeper, particularly if there's a change in that person's behaviour. So if you do have to have those difficult conversations, always go in by asking them what's going on, what their concern is, what they're worried about, and if there's anything that they want to talk to you about. And let them lead those agendas. Whenever I had a one-to-one, I would always set up by opening the space of what's going on for you. Is there anything you particularly want to talk about today? And what's really important in approaching one-to-ones like that is holding a space for complete honesty and not putting yourself into that space. And what I mean by putting yourself into that space is if someone voluntarily confides in you or wants to talk about something difficult, not then jumping into that, just letting that be and giving them the chance to say everything that needs to say before you react, and knowing that it's not about you and it's about what you can do to support them. And good communication, regular communication is actually the way that you resolve almost any problem. And then step 4 is managing outcomes and not people or tasks. Anyone that's familiar with the principles of journalism will know that the what, why, how, who, and when are always the most important pieces of information. So if you're working on a new project, make sure that all of this is in place to enable your team to work effectively together. So first of all, is what is the goal you want to achieve? What are you working towards? Where is everyone going? What is the outcome you're expecting at the end of it? Secondly, why are you doing it? Like, what's the benefit to the company? What's the benefit to the team? What's the benefit to the individual in their career progression? What are they going to get out of doing this? What's the client going to get? How are you going to get there? What's the strategy? What are the key tasks? Is everyone on the same page? Does anyone have any questions? Are there any gaps that you haven't noticed? Give that space for your team to jump in and contribute to the plan. And then who is massively important. You need to get really, really clear on who is responsible for what, so that you're working to a team that everyone is accountable and feels responsible and feels brought into their particular element of the project. And a really vital part of that is making sure people have the understanding and the support that they need. For me, I'm a yes person, and I've always had a tendency to jump into projects and go, yeah, I can do that, without stopping to think about, actually, do I know what I'm doing? Are there gaps in my knowledge? Do I need to work with someone else on this? So make sure you have those conversations with your team as well. And then finally, when does each element need to be delivered by? Have accountability, make sure everyone has integrity in what they're doing so that everything continues to work, and that massively reduces any opportunity for conflict or blaming or things not working and not progressing. And then finally, my final point sounds like a really, really tiny thing, but actually acknowledgement is one of the most powerful tools in leadership. Acknowledgement simply is the action of showing that one has noticed someone or something. I think when we are working in a high pressure environment, it's so easy to get really wrapped up in ourselves and what we're doing. And it's really easy to overlook the support of your team and their needs to be recognised. I'm certainly a person that is motivated by acknowledgement, and a lot of the people I work with have been motivated by that too. I work for companies where we've had like monthly meetings where people have been, put a little piece of paper in a box during the month, acknowledging someone for doing something great, and then it's read out. But that can kind of get a little bit cliquey sometimes. And I really feel like acknowledgement should be a daily practice. Like Sophie and I are so conscientious of telling each other almost every day how much we appreciate each other and how much we appreciate what work we've done that day. I don't accept any deliverable from any of my team or freelancer without acknowledging how great it is and saying a thank you. Because people just want to feel seen and be heard and feel valued. And it really is that simple. So just in conclusion, my 5 key things for compassionate leadership are including personality tests and assessment as part of your team building to cultivate empathy. Encourage and allow your team to set boundaries. I would say even more than that, like make it compulsory that everyone sets boundaries. Focus on people first, because that has the biggest impact on performance. And manage outcomes, because you can't manage people. It's patronizing and people don't like it. And then finally, acknowledgement really does make a massive difference to your team. Thank you.